Morning, all. All right, so in our year-by-year look at the National Hockey League's history, we're up to the 1987-88 season. As you can see, the Adams division is led by the Montreal Canadiens that year, 103 points, which puts them only behind Calgary for first overall in points. 45, 22, and 13 record for the 103-point Montreal Canadiens. 298 goals scored, 238 goals against. They're captained by Bob Gainey. The Boston Bruins, 44, 30, and 6, 94 points, 300 goals scored, 251 goals against. Ray Bourque and Rick Middleton wore the C that season for Boston. Buffalo, led by Lindy Ruff as captain, 37, 32, and 11 record, 85 points, 283 goals scored, 305 goals against. The Hartford Whalers, fourth in the division with 77 points, a 35, 38, and 7 record, captained by Ron Francis. 249 goals scored, 267 goals against. The Quebec Nordiques missed the playoffs, 69 points for them, a record of 32, 43, and 5. And as I said in yesterday's video, once they started falling, there just didn't seem to be a bottom. 271 goals scored, 306 goals against. They're captained by Peter Stastny. The Patrick division is led by the Islanders. The Islanders cruise back up to first. They're now captained by Brent Sutter. Record of 39, 21, and 10, 88 points, 308 goals scored, 267 goals against. Second in the division is the Capitals, 38, 33, and 9 record, 85 points, 281 goals scored, 249 goals against. They're captained by Rod Langway. The Flyers, 38, 33, and 9 as well. They lose a tiebreaker to the Washington Capitals. So also with 85 points, 292 goals scored, 292 goals against. Dave Poulin as their captain. The New Jersey Devils make the playoffs, which is unusual for them. 38, 36, and 6 record, 82 points. Kirk Muller, their captain. They scored 295 goals. They allowed 296. The New York Rangers finished 36, 34, and 12, or 10, I should say. They also have 82 points, but they lose the tiebreaker with 2 less wins than New Jersey. So this division's tight. There's 7 points separating first from sixth. But for the Rangers, 300 goals scored, 283 goals against. Both Ron Greschner and Kelly Kissio wore the C that year for the Rangers. The Pittsburgh Penguins, 36, 35, and 9, 81 points. So they're getting better. They just missed the playoffs, just barely. 319 goals scored, 316 goals against. Both Dan Frawley and Mario Lemieux wore the captain's C that season for Pittsburgh. Then we go out west to the Norris, where the Detroit Red Wings finished 41, 28, and 11, 93 points, 322 goals scored, 269 goals against. They're captained by Steve Yzerman. The St. Louis Blues, captained by Brian Sutter, 34, 38, and 8 record, 76 points, 278 goals scored, 294 goals against. The Chicago Blackhawks finished third with a record of 30, 41, and 9. I didn't see a captain listed. 69 points, 284 goals scored, 328 goals against. So this illustrates the issue with divisional play like this when it comes to deciding playoff spots, because the Hawks have 69 points. The Leafs have 52. They make the playoffs. The 81-point Penguins and the 82-point Rangers do not make the playoffs. So if that happened now, we'd have like the nuclear meltdown on the internet. Now it's just, well, that team shouldn't have made it. They had 2 less points than this team. Ooh, 2 points. So Chicago's third. Toronto's fourth, as said, with 52 points, record of 21, 49, and 10. But because they play in the Norris, they qualify for the playoffs. 273 goals scored, 345 goals against. No captain listed. Believe that was after they traded Vibe to Chicago. Minnesota finishes 19, 48, and 13, 51 points. So 1 point out of the playoffs in the Norris. 242 goals scored, 349 goals against. They are still captained by Craig Hartsburg. The Smythe division is actually won that year by Calgary. So Calgary's first time finishing first. 48, 23, and 9 record, 105 points, 397 goals scored, 305 goals against. Both Lanny McDonald and Jim Poplinski wore the C that year for the Flames. The Edmonton Oilers, 44, 25, and 11. So they failed to reach 100 points. They have 99 points that year, 363 goals scored, 288 goals against. Wayne Gretzky is the captain. So there was definitely discussion that season, but whether or not the Oilers were falling and you know, whether or not the Oilers dynasty was falling apart. And we were starting to see cracks when it came to this team being able to pay their players. We'll talk about that when we get to this part of the board. The Winnipeg Jets, 33-36-11 record for 77 points. They're captained by Dale Hawerchuk. 292 goals scored, 310 goals against. The LA Kings, 30-42-8 record, 68 points. 318 goals scored, 359 goals against. Dave Taylor is the captain there. The Vancouver Canucks, captained by Stan Smythe, 25-46-9 record, 59 points, 272 goals scored, 320 goals against. So again, you've got a team with 77 points in third, a team with 68 points in fourth. The East was definitely stronger than the West at that point in time in the National Hockey League. So this is the year the King Clancy Award is introduced. That's handed out for leadership and humanitarian efforts off the ice. The Devils make the playoffs for the first time since the move from Denver. So the New Jersey Devils, finally a playoff team, finally not a Mickey Mouse organization, and they go on a bit of a run in the playoffs that year. December 8th of 1987, Ron Hextall becomes the first goaltender to hit an empty net, to directly score a goal into the net. Billy Smith had been credited with the goal. It was an empty netter. There was an own goal by the Colorado Rockies. So Hextall's the first goaltender to actually put it right in the middle of the net. It wouldn't be the last time he did that in his career either. This was the season after the fourth Canada Cup was played. So the 1987 Canada Cup, the highlight reel goal of Wayne Gretzky winning it. He's on the same line as Mario Lemieux. And the third on that line was Dale Hawerchuk. It was insane how deep the Canadian team was, and it was a fun series. I still remember the Canada Cup fondly, and it feels like that's what they try to replicate now. It's very difficult to replicate something like that, though. I don't know that they ever can. Maybe this next Olympics coming up in 2026, and for some, the 2010 Olympics may already be at that same level. But for me as a kid, it was fun to watch. The Bruins eliminated the Habs for the first time since 1945. So after 18 straight series losses by the Boston Bruins, they finally beat the Montreal Canadiens. We will talk about that. A power failure in Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Final at Boston Garden meant it was a 4-game sweep via 5 games. So that was upsetting to me as a Bruins fan because I knew they weren't winning the series, but I felt like they might win that game. I was like, well, at least they won't get swept. And then the power went out, and then they went back to Edmonton rather than resuming Game 4 somehow, and then it's back at Edmonton, and of course they won. So, yeah, I wasn't very happy with Boston Garden at that point because it felt like it cost Boston maybe a victory in that series. We'll get over to that, but yeah, that's how I felt. June 18th of 1987, Chicago signs undrafted free agent Ed Belfour, who's going to be a pretty good goaltender for them. November 24th of 1987, kind of a major trade made here. So Paul Coffey not getting the money from Edmonton that he wanted, as I remember it. And so the Penguins trade for him. They trade Dave Hannon, Chris Joseph, Mo Mantha, and Craig Simpson to the Oilers in exchange for Paul Coffey, Dave Hunter, and Wayne Van Dorp. The Penguins win that trade. Craig Simpson had some good years in Edmonton, yes. But Paul Coffey really changed things for the Pittsburgh Penguins, gave them something they didn't have until they acquired him. And it's part of the reason why the Penguins have that 81-point season, which was, again, pretty strong. They were just in a very strong division, and so they barely missed the playoffs there. March 7th of 1988, the Blues trade Rob Ramage and Rick Walmsley to the Flames for Brett Hull and Steve Bozek. But, as it's been said over the years, adding Ramage and Walmsley may very well be part of the reason why Calgary wins the Stanley Cup in 1989. But still, the loss of Brett Hull is one that we look at this as one of the most lopsided trades in league history for a reason. March 26, 1988, the Bruins trade Bill Ranford and Jeff Courtnall to the Oilers for Andy Moog. The Oilers were playing Fir every single night. Fir would break the record for most games played in a season that year. Plays 74, the original record, of course, being 73 by Bernie Parent. And, so Moog wanted out. He wanted to go somewhere where he'd have a chance to play. Boston picks him up. It's a trade that benefits both teams. Moog was fantastic in Boston, and Bill Ranford ends up winning a cup with them in 1990. So it all works out for everybody in that one. March 1st of 1988, Gretzky records his 1,050th assist to pass Gordie Howe for first on the all-time list. It took him 9 seasons to do it. It's absolutely insane that he became the #1 assist leader all time in the NHL in 9 years. Also, April 22nd of 1988, New Jersey's Patrick Sundstrom sets an NHL playoff record with 8 points in a game, 3 goals, 5 assists in a 10-4 win against the Washington Capitals. So Patrick Sundstrom right there. January 4th of 1988, the Leafs' Borje Salming becomes the first European-trained player to play 1,000 National Hockey League games. January 14th of 1988, the Islanders' Denny Potvin becomes the first NHL defenseman to reach 300 career goals. So Potvin, the first to 1,000 points, first to 300 goals. January 28th of 1988, Marcel Dion becomes the first player in NHL history to record 20 goals in the first 17 straight seasons that he plays. That's something to behold right there. Marcel Dion, very consistent, but again, he's overshadowed during this era by this guy named Gretzky and a few other superstars now that are in the league. So the Art Ross Trophy that year goes to Mario Lemieux, breaking the, I think it was 8-season streak or 9-season streak for, 8-season streak for Gretzky. The Masterton goes to Bob Bourne of the LA Kings. The Calder goes to Joe Nieuwendyk in Calgary. The Conn Smythe goes to Wayne Gretzky in Edmonton. The Selke Trophy goes to Guy Carbonneau for the Montreal Canadiens. The Hart Trophy goes to Mario Lemieux of the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Jack Adams goes to Jacques Demers for Detroit, so that's the second time he won Coach of the Year. The Norris Trophy goes to Ray Bourque of Boston, because he's the best. The King Clancy Trophy, the first winner is Lanny McDonald of the Calgary Flames. The Lady Byng goes to Matt Snaslund of the Montreal Canadiens. The Lester Pearson Trophy goes to Mario Lemieux of the Pittsburgh Penguins, so he sweeps those awards. The Vezina Trophy goes to Grant Fuhr of the Edmonton Oilers, and the Jennings goes to the combination of Brian Hayward and Patrick Roy with the Montreal Canadiens. So your league all-stars that year, Mario Lemieux's the first team all-star down the middle, Wayne Gretzky's second team. On the left side, Luc Robitaille, the LA Kings first team, Michel Goulet of the Quebec Nordiques second team. On the right side, Håkan Loob for the Calgary Flames is the first team all-star, Cam Neely second team. And Loob, great player, didn't have a very long career in the National Hockey League, decided to go home and play. Otherwise, we could be talking about Hall of Fame player Håkan Loob. On the blue line, Ray Bourque of the Boston Bruins is on the first team alongside Scott Stevens of the Washington Capitals. Ryan Suter of Calgary and Brad McCrimmon of Calgary are your second team all-stars on the blue line. In net, Grant Fuhr of the Oilers is the first team all-star, and Patrick Roy of the Montreal Canadiens, second team all-star in net. Mario Lemieux leads the way in scoring, as previously mentioned, 77 games, 70 goals, 98 assists, 168 points. So, Lemieux showing Gretzky-like scoring prowess. Gretzky only played 64 games that year, 40 goals, 109 assists, 149 points. You could see he was slowing down a bit, like just in terms of the scoring, and of course he's not going to be able to keep scoring 200 points every year. Denis Savard, 80 games, 44 goals, 87 assists, 131 points. Dale Hawerchuk, 80 games, 44 goals, 77 assists for 121 points. Luc Robitaille, 80 games, 53 goals, 58 assists, 111 points. Peter Stastny in Quebec, 76 games, 46 goals, 65 assists. Another player with 111 points. And Marc Messier also has 111 points. This, of course, with the Oilers, 77 games, 37 goals, 74 assists, and that 111 points. Jimmy Carson in LA, 80 games, 55 goals, 52 assists, 107 points. Håkan Loob in Calgary, 80 games, 50 goals, 56 assists, 106 points. And Michel Goulet in Quebec, 80 games, 48 goals, 58 assists, 106 points. Grant Fuhr leads the way in wins because he played almost every game for the Oilers. 40, 24, and 9 record, 881 save percentage, 4 shutouts. Mike Vernon in Calgary, 39, 16, and 7 record, 877 save percentage, 1 shutout. Ron Hextall in Philly, 30, 22, and 7, 886 save percentage, no shutouts. John Van Beesbrook in New York, 27, 22, and 7 record, 890 save percentage, 2 shutouts. And in save percentage terms, Patrick Roy kind of led the way that year, 900 save percentage. So if you had a 900 save percentage, you were considered a very good goaltender during that point, at that point in time. But save percentages would start coming up as we get closer and into the 90s and whatnot. There would be that gradual shift, and then all of a sudden, defense would rule the day. We're not there yet. So we get to the playoffs, and in the first round division semifinals, and again, it's best 4 out of 7 now. Edmonton beats Winnipeg 4-1. Calgary beats LA 4-1, so no upsets there. St. Louis beats Chicago 4-1, and Detroit beats Toronto 4-2. So even though Toronto has 52 points, they're 41 points behind Detroit. They still extend that series to 6. They're very good as underdogs in the playoffs. Washington beats Philadelphia in 7 games. New Jersey beats the Islanders 4-2. The Boston Bruins beat Buffalo, I should say, 4-2, and Montreal beats Hartford 4-2. In the division finals, Edmonton and Calgary, the Battle of Alberta, not much of a battle. Edmonton sweeps Calgary 4 straight games, even though Calgary had home ice advantage, having won the division. Detroit beats St. Louis 4-1. New Jersey beats Washington 4-3. So the unlikely New Jersey Devils end up going all the way to the conference final. Washington Capitals again out in the second round. Just struggling to get over the hump, Washington is. Even though, again, they would have had home ice in that series. Boston beats Montreal 4-1. All they needed to do was acquire Andy Moog. All they needed to do was have Cam Neely playing some of the best hockey of his career, and Ray Bourque being Ray Bourque. And finally, Boston beats Montreal. Conference finals, Detroit and Edmonton. Last time out, of course, I believe Detroit won the first game against Edmonton. They're not so fortunate this time. Edmonton wins both games at home by scores of 4-1 and 5-3. Detroit wins game 3 at home 5-2, but then Edmonton wins in overtime 4-3 in game 4 before winning at home 8-4 to win the series in 5 games. New Jersey and Boston, highly entertaining series. Boston wins at home 5-3, and then New Jersey wins 3-2 in overtime to steal home ice advantage. Boston steals it back with a 6-1 win in Game 3. New Jersey wins the 4th game 3-1. Boston wins the 5th game by a score of 7-1. So when Boston won, they won big. But New Jersey ties the series again with a 6-3 win. In Game 7, at home, Boston wins 6-2 to win the series in 7. But Stanley Cup Final, Edmonton wins both games at home 2-1 and 4-2. And then Edmonton goes into Boston and wins 6-3. The 4th game is a 3-3 tie at the time of the power outage. So we go to Edmonton. Edmonton wins game 5 of the 4-game series 6-3, and it's technically a sweep. It's a 4-game sweep there. So Ken Linseman leads the way in scoring for Boston in the Stanley Cup Final. 2 goals and 2 assists for him. Wesley had 2 goals and 2 assists as well. Cam Neely, 2 goals and an assist. Ray Bourque, 3 assists for the Boston Bruins. Moog had an .841 save percentage. Lemelin had an .855 save percentage. Tough final for them against the Edmonton Oilers. Gretzky had 3 goals and 10 assists. So what would be the final series he played with the Edmonton Oilers? We didn't know at the time was that Peter Pocklington would sell him to the LA Kings, and hockey world would never be the same after that. Esa Tikkanen, 6 goals, 3 assists for him. The Hall of Famer Glenn Anderson had 3 goals, 3 assists. Easy for me to say. Yari Curry had a goal and 4 assists in that Stanley Cup Final. Grant Fuhr had an .870 save percentage in that Stanley Cup Final. So the Oilers are champs again, but things are going to change dramatically before the 88-89 season gets started. And the Oilers would only have one more championship after this, and everything changes. All of a sudden, California is able to support 3 teams because of what happens with Wayne Gretzky. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event you've not done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.